This is the Four Verticals podcast on this Tuesday evening. How about that? A little delayed. I'll get into that in just a second why we were delayed. But happy to be here atop well, not really atop, but coming to you live from a very chilly Jacksonville, Florida. If you're new here, welcome in. We don't usually do the show this late at 6:26, if you will, in the evening. But in light of some technical difficulties we were running into a little bit earlier, we are live now. I can assure you, so malicious activities going on here where we weren't purposely pushing the show back. Um, we just ran into some difficulties and now here we are. So hopefully you guys are, if you're listening to this live, which is I don't think any of you are because we only have 4 subscribers, but if you're listening to this per se after the fact and then the Spotify feed or on the replay, welcome in. Going to check real quick, just to make sure that we are indeed the audio is working. So forgive me. So hopefully you guys are, and you can hear me. So that is fantastic. A couple of things we'll keep a note here. Some housekeeping stuff, just to make sure. Subscribe. Nothing happens. I don't sign you up for any forms or anything. I don't like come to your house or whatever and force you to like sign a form or anything. I don't send you emails or text messages or anything like that. Just to make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the streams while you're at it. Also be sure to follow me on Twitter as well, and be sure to follow me on the on Spotify. That is the audio, sort of audio only version. Though this is also audio only as well, but just make sure you're following me on all the sources, if you will. But yes, welcome into the show. Again, we ran into some technical difficulties, and those have been resolved. We are finally moving forward here with the show as it usually is. So there's no worries here with the show being delayed. Worst case scenario, we would have just done it tomorrow, but we're not going to do that because um, I'm loyal to you, all the 4 fans that we have. And we'll just say that within the past day or so, we may or may not be trying to get some guest speakers on. I've reached out to some people. I actually had a good conversation with someone this past week about some tips and stuff and how I get into the podcasting world. And we could potentially have some guests coming this spring and summer, so just keep an eye on that. Who knows? Maybe I'll re-mention this again later on down the road, but just something to keep in mind, if you will, going forward. So again, welcome to the show. Again, we don't usually we don't usually record this late, but here we are. Man, a lot of things have happened in the past week or so. There were some topics that I had in the show that we're moving those now to the Thursday show. Just sort of in light in the fact that we had the late start. So Ohio State and Notre Dame are playing a national championship game, not in Ohio State, Penn State. I will touch on Penn State and Texas, the losers of the semifinals, in a little bit. But that is old news, as you will know. And the national championship is next week. So was Martin Luther King Day, and so was the inauguration. So a lot of things going on Monday. I hope everyone can keep on tabs on what's going on, because it's going to be a busy day next week on Monday for sure. So Ohio State's playing Notre Dame. Ohio State, according to the FanDuel numbers, is -8.5. Last time I checked, which was a couple hours ago. So what is the path for Notre Dame here? Because we know what the path is for Ohio State. They're talented. They have the best overall talent in the entire tournament that was left. I even said that as much last week. Ohio State physically can match up well with Notre Dame's defense. I think they can do some different things. Obviously, this is the best team that Notre Dame has faced all year, up to including Texas A&M, Penn State, and Indiana, and USC. No offense to those teams at all. Those are fairly good teams. Some of them are, to a certain extent. But this is going to be a test for them. Can they pass this test? Can they duplicate the formula, if you will, of getting turnovers and running the football and game control and things of that nature? They certainly can. They've done it the past 3 or 4 weeks. So it's not impossible. It is certainly possible. But can they do it? This is their 16th game, if you will, because they didn't have a conference championship game, so it would have been 17, but now it's 16. 16 straight game. Can they continue this this method? The only team that was really able to really beat Notre Dame, frankly, was Northern Illinois. which is weird to say because, when you usually think of national championship teams are in the national championship, you don't think of a team that lost to a G5 team that made it in. Or a little less a bad G5 team. Normally, you'll see teams losing the good G5s. Closest example to that was, of course, Virginia Tech losing to Boise State back in 2010. And if I recall correctly, Oklahoma losing to Houston in 2016. But those two teams didn't make it to the national championship game. Grant you, if we had an expanded playoff, at least in Oklahoma's case, a number of years ago, they would have been in probably. I find it hard to believe that Notre Dame can continue their formula, at least stay away into doing things. Now, I said that last week, and they proved me wrong. So, little do I know, they could very much so next week in Atlanta, Georgia, where this game will be played at, show up to Mercedes-Benz Stadium and actually do what they've been doing, which is, winning in a style that has been consistent, game control, clock control, controlling the ball, and so forth. And so what? I don't know why I just said there, but at least using playing their brand of football they've been playing for the past 11 or so weeks. Again, is it duplicable? Probably not, but they are capable of doing it. They've shown they can do it, but can your health, can your depth, especially with injuries last week in light of, with Riley Leonard going down, do they have a serviceable backup? I don't think so, but we don't know for sure if that were to happen. I know that sort of happened last week against Penn State, but it kind of didn't. But man, Ohio State just has so much talent, man. So much talent. You have those receivers, Emeka Ibuka, Jeremiah Smith, who was a no factor last week, and they still won, which is crazy for Ohio State. Because everyone looks at that Texas game and goes, man, Ohio State didn't look that good. I see it as an example of them being able to win games in different ways. They don't have to win in blowout fashion, and they can win in different ways. They won a game in a very close, low-scoring game, and they're able to pull away late. I think defensively, again, you have guys like JTT, Jack Sawyer, guys who have been around for a while, not necessarily portal guys making impacts. Now, I say that, and Quinshon Judkins and guys like him, and, they make impacts in the game next week, and I get proven wrong a little bit, but they're not the only reasons why they're winning games. It's a veteran group. It's guys who have been around for a number of years, who have endured the losses to Michigan and missing out in the playoff and losing to Georgia a couple years ago in the semifinal. They've been through all of that, and certainly Ryan Day has been through that as well, which makes me to believe that as a team, like I mentioned last week, to a certain extent, I have no idea what's happening to my computer here. Excuse me here. I have no idea what just happened here. The screen just went black here. I don't know if you guys can still hear me. You guys can still hear me, I think. I have no idea what's happening to my computer here. Excuse me. Yeah, I have no idea what's happening here. I have no clue, but this is part of the technical difficulties we were having a little bit earlier, so apologies for this if this is, if you're listening to this live, and we're still alive, by the way, and I think we're still recording, and now we're back. I have no idea. There is actually a, what's it called? Like one of those virus scam things that's going on in the background, so apologies for that, if you will. But like I was saying, I think Ohio State, they've been through all this, trials and tribulations with, the losing Ohio State, things like that. And I think Ryan Day and company will certainly feed on that, and they will certainly use that as motivation, no less. And I think they will. I think just talent-wise, they out superior Notre Dame. But I do believe Notre Dame will show up. It's 8.5 point spread. I don't expect this to be like a 45-7 type of event. If that is the case, then so be it. So I look at this game, and it's kind of what it is against an 8.5 point spread. I think Ohio State's going to win the game. I think they do cover. I think you can obviously see that coming. The CFP Nerds model has it. By the way, Ohio State minus 13.7. I somewhat agree with that. That makes sense to me. Again, if Notre Dame were to win this game, obviously turnovers, you can't forget that. Ball control the clock. Riley Leonard sort of does what he's been doing the past 11 weeks or so, or 15 or 13 weeks. And you win that way, Notre Dame will win the national championship. It sounds like I am saving myself just in case if they do end up winning, but just to ensure here that we are covering everything, but I think Ohio State will win. I think they'll cover. Again, apologies for the screen going out there. I'm a lot of things running in the background. Quick reaction to the semifinals, and then we'll move on to the Carson Beck to Miami stuff, and then we'll get into the rest of the topics. Actually, we'll cut before I do that. I'll get some water, which I have not had in a little bit. So, quick reaction to these semifinals, especially both teams, Penn State and Penn State, Texas. I really wanted to get to real quickly here. Um, I do understand that there is a lot of people who are disappointed. We'll speak to Texas first, and we'll get to Penn State. There's a lot of upset people, especially who are especially regarding Texas. A lot of disappointment, a lot of angst, a lot of feelings of failure. I will say this: that Steve Sarkisian is the right man for the job. There's no doubt in my mind that he is the right guy for the job. I mentioned this the past couple of shows. What Steve Sarkisian has done at Texas, and think about this: you go back to losing to Iowa State in 2021, losing to Arkansas in blowout fashion, losing to Kansas, and seeing where you are now. You have made it to two semifinal games in the college football playoffs. You failed to win either one. It doesn't feel necessarily good, but I think it does point to that you have the right guy for the job. You're moving in the right direction, and firmly believe, I think Texas is very much equipped based on recruiting, staffing, all the other things are in the background of college football teams, strength and conditioning, nutrition, marketing, and whatnot. You're going to see Texas back here again in a familiar spot. Now, not necessarily a guarantee either. You could very much well see Texas back here again. Maybe they don't win it all necessarily, but they will be back. I think they'll be beating the playoff. They will definitely be contenders in the SEC going forward. Nothing against Sark at all. I know a lot of folks aren't happy with him, but again, like I just mentioned, I firmly believe he is the right guy for the job, and the last 2 seasons and the way he has built this program has certainly indicated that he is the right man for the job, and I would be very cautious to say otherwise about him, and I think you're seeing a lot of rumors about him being projected for other jobs, potentially in the NFL. Just be cautious of those, as you should be. But also know that there are a lot of teams in college football and the NFL that will want Sark as their head coach. Certainly, he's the best play caller, and I think, or one of the best play callers in college football. And he is certainly, from a program standpoint, he's built it the right way. And that's why you're seeing his name mentioned. And I think that's both a blessing and a curse. Because if he wasn't good, and you wouldn't be hearing his name mentioned for any of those jobs. You'll be hearing his name mentioned for different reasons. As for Penn State, and I mentioned this on Twitter a little bit, there's a lot of things being mentioned about James Franklin and whatnot and Penn State. A lot of people have their opinions on them, which is fine, by the way. I'm not saying you shouldn't have any opinions on them. You should. Of course. Everyone has their opinions, or everyone has their own thoughts on James Franklin and Penn State. But there's a couple things I won't do. I will not sit here and yell. I will not sit here and scream. I will not sit here and call people names. I will not sit here and call for anyone's jobs. Penn State, much like Texas, is going to be just fine. They have the right guy for the job. They have built it the right way there at Penn State. And in fact, they built it in a sense, and you've heard Josh Paybrot bring this up before multiple times. It's the old adage of progress is not always linear. Penn State's a perfect example of that. Just a couple years ago, they were a 7-win team. It feels like 10 years ago, but it really was only 4 years ago or 3 years ago when they were winning 7 games and losing to Arkansas in the bowl game in Tampa. James Franklin's the right guy for the job. He's not going anywhere. I would assume not. Not because he's going to get fired, but he would, if there's any scandal or anything, he would certainly be fired, or at least that would at least change my mind a little bit. But my opinions of him have not changed. I think Penn State's a good program. I've always thought that James Franklin, again, just to preface here, Not an elite coach, not a bad coach, but he is a good coach and a very good coach at that. He's not an elite coach. He's not a bad coach. Um, Again, I know a lot of people are upset with him. I know a lot of people who are frustrated with him and are sick of him. I hate to inform you, but he is not going anywhere, nor is my opinions of him are going to change. I know some of you will still think that way. I know some of you will still call him names and yell at him and scream at him and say he's overrated and stuff. But much like Steve Sarkisian, he's the right guy for the job. There's no doubt in my mind. The program is not falling apart before your eyes. It's not collapsing in front of you or anything. It's fine. I know there's been some turnover, especially with Tom Allen going to Clemson. That was announced yesterday. Um, that's normal, especially. I mean, Tom Allen's a very coveted coach, especially within the defensive coordinator market realm. And trust me, we'll touch on the not hiring come Thursday, but we were going to discuss it here. But just because of some of the technical difficulties here and issues we ran into, I figured it'd probably be safe to not do not do that right now and move that to the potential Thursday show. But my opinions of him have not changed, and I think James Franklin and Penn State will carry themselves well. It'll be interesting to see what they do in the spring, what their attitude is, and how they prepare for next year. Because I think next year would definitely be a year where you would expect them to be back. We'll see who returns, who doesn't return, and who they get in the spring portal, and so on and so forth. And I think they'll be just fine. I have no concerns right now. That could easily change in the spring and the fall. I will fully admit that that could easily change, but unless it does happen, my opinions of James Franklin will not change, and that's just the way it is. So, in the words of Walter Cronkite, there. But just a little reaction here to the semifinals. Some thoughts on the losers of both prospective losers of those teams. I'm gonna check how long we've been going for here, just to check. 16 minutes. I don't believe that is accurate or not, but we may be having a very short show today. I guess just again in light of what's sort of happened here. Um, I wanted to react to this well quickly here. Well, somewhat quickly. Carson Beck to Miami. That was official a couple of days ago. He entered in. I mentioned this last week about him entering in. Wasn't sure if he was going to have the do not contact tag, which again, us in the normal people world, the general public, do not have access to the database. That is locked behind a firewall. You can access it. It's encrypted. You need a password to access it. Only I think certain reporters, school administrators, coaches, players have access to it. The general, the typical Jimmies and Joes and Janes and whatnot, you cannot access it, but the reporters can access it. And according to those who did, a couple of days ago or last week, saw him entering in with the do not contact tag, which usually translates to I know where I'm going. I have my decision made. It's just a matter of, getting the paperwork filed and making sure you're going to be enrolled properly, so on and so forth. And Carson Beck is going to Miami. Certainly for a number of reasons. I think it's appealing that, Shannon Dawson, the offensive coordinator there, is very experienced and very well regarded. Big fan of his somewhat. They've also made a change at defensive coordinator. They brought in the Minnesota coordinator. They let go Lance Guidry. I thought it was going to work out there. Certainly a lot of our folks did. It didn't. So be it. Some other reasons too. Of course, the appeal of Cam Ward being there and his success as a transfer as well, and having success in that Shannon Dawson offense certainly appeals to you. The talent there also would appeal to you as well. Certainly me, given the talent that Miami has been, stacking recruiting class, top of recruiting class, top of recruiting class, and getting guys in the portal. Be interested to see who they get in the portal too. Who follows Carson Beck? Certainly in a situation with big time players on the move, you would assume that you would see other players move along with them. It happens in recruiting. Also happens in the case of the transfer portal. Certainly some also uh, thoughts and opinions about some off the field reasons why he left to go to Miami. I know his, I guess, yeah, his girlfriend, one of the, I believe, is the Cavender twins. I believe that is correct. One of them is his girlfriend, and both of them. I forget which one it is. Whatever. One of them is his girlfriend. They're both on Miami's basketball team. Team. So anyone who was making that connection beforehand, it makes sense, right? You're gonna go where your certain friends are, and that's what he chose. Nothing wrong with that. That's his decision, but uh, Certainly he made that decision on his own, and uh, that's may not be the only reason why he went there, but certainly a reason, definitely a factor there. But he's at Miami now, and he's gonna be with a very good staff, very good roster, uh, fairly decent talent level there. Again, we'll be interested to see who they add in and what they will be adding in, and the transfer portal. Very interested to see how that will look and how that will operate. So very glad to see that with Carson Beck being down there, and a lot of folks questioning Mario Cristobal for sure. Certainly how last year ended. I think he has certainly addressed those concerns with, making some staff moves and whatnot and changing some things around. But just cautious a little bit. Again, interested to see how they handle the spring portal. Bringing Carson back. This also, like I mentioned, somewhat validates those rumors about Dylan Raiola being involved in Miami and behind the scenes, and potentially some other big time players that you'll never hear the names of because of for certain reasons, legal reasons or not. They are you're never going to know exactly who was being contacted and who was not being contacted. That's just the way things are sometimes. Not necessarily a bad thing, but unfortunately, that's just the way things are, especially as someone who has been through PR and learned all the law and ethics of communication. You cannot reveal your sources, nor can you reveal certain things behind the scenes unless you want to get sued by a legal firm the size of, I don't know, Russia or China. But Carson Beck to Miami, no real surprise there at all for multiple reasons I just mentioned. I am very cautious to see how this looks. This could easily work. This could easily fail. There is both paths to that. We will certainly detail those in the coming months, and certainly there's a lot of time to digest all this. And not to mention too, he's been hurt. He got surgery I think a couple weeks ago, or I think last week or something like that, or to those lines. So he will not be available in the spring. So not you won't see him until probably fall camp. They do play Notre Dame week 1. Should be a big game there, and then UF comes to town. So it's gonna be real pretty quickly to see what the mental test is of this team is, especially with a lot. Going to be mostly a brand new roster, I would assume, and of course, you have a brand new quarterback and whatnot. I would imagine that will be a major factor going forward. So again, kudos to Shannon Dawson in Miami, to and Mark Cristobal for getting him down there. Huge get for them. Huge get. Show's going pretty well so far. I think we're just because we don't want to go this or have this show go for too long, or we're going to keep this a little bit short, if you will. Again, apologies for the technical difficulties. I'm assuming you guys could have still heard me, but this may end up being one of our shortest shows we've probably ever had, which is pretty rare to say the least. But we still have a lot to discuss. There is a shift coming in the college football calendar that's been discussed for a while. I've voiced my concerns. A lot of other industry types and coaches have also discussed their issues with the current college football calendar. It's not good right now. It's not necessarily healthy, but it is interesting to say the least that there is going to be some real change coming, potentially, or not potentially, given how they choose to do this. But according to a lot of folks at the the American Football Coaching Association, there is a convention there, I believe, taking place this week, which was going on, I believe, this time last year as well, which was when Nick Saban just randomly retired on January 10th of last year. But this is coming from, by the way, people like Brandon Marcello, Bud Elliott, people like that, big time reporters out there. This is from Marcello directly. So, quote, at the the CA coaches, AFCA coaches went one 10-day portal window in January, eliminating the spring window and providing some calm in December as they navigate, they being the coaches, the postseason with a solid roster. They will push this proposal up the ladder, meaning this will go to the higher ups of that organization. So what does that mean indirectly? Well, there's been conversations in the past months, years, and whatnot about these calendar of college football. We haven't noticed it a lot, but it's been an issue even before this year. I get to this year in particular. Well, in particular, but it was an issue even before this. Starting when the national signing day got moved from February to December, you started to notice a bit of a logjam, if you will, with the schedule, because the national signing day being in December, you also happens to land around the same time. You have the college football playoff coming up. This is back when the 4 team was going on. National signing day, 4 team playoff. And you it was a busy time, and not to mention bowl preparation and of course the holidays coming up. Who can forget that, the busiest time of the year, as they say. But now you enter in this time of the year, or well, this era, if you will, this brave new world, if you will, of college football, where you have not only National Signing Day being in December still, you still have coaching firings and whatnot going on as well, holidays going on, players and National Signing Day, but also the transfer portal and the college football playoff and bowl games on top of that starting. So the calendar and the whole month of December is a disaster. It's been said for a number of years now. It's not just me saying it. Like Josh Page's been saying it for like 2 years now. Ever since I've had a show, access to having a show, I've also been mentioning that as well. This would be a good change for the coaches, certainly, because I think I do understand the certain extent to a lot of people who think, well, I mean, they're coaches and it's their job; they should deal with it. But you also run into a situation that is just not humanly possible. A normal human couldn't even comprehend what a typical head coach does. It incorporates a lot of things: recruiting, marketing now, especially with NIL, evaluating a transfer portal, meeting with your staff turnover. Coaches can, get fired and leave for different jobs all the time or retire. Recruiting. I think I just mentioned that, but not to mention again, bowl preparation, cultural playoff preparation now, being that the playoff is 12 teams and has multiple games now. We have to sort of do a lot of things in a short amount of time. And I don't even think a normal human being could comprehend that. Like if you were in that position, I would imagine even the best operating person, mind you, would falter in that position. I just don't think they'll be able to survive it properly. I think there would be trials and tribulations all over the place, or experiencing different struggles and realizing that this may not be for me. I think a lot of coaches have experienced that to a certain extent. I also firmly believe that's what Nick Saban thought. He probably thought to himself, just the way the sport is currently, or at least the way it's currently structured, I don't believe I am the best fit for this, which is why he decided to move on. But if this does get approved, and that's a whole other topic of conversation. I mean, I get approved. What Bud Elliott over on the Cover 3 pointed out, very well, I mind you. This is coming from him. He said, coaches here at this is the convention they're all at have unanimously voted to recommend the transfer portal be moved to the January 2nd and only have a single window. So just eliminating the spring window entirely. However, and this is what Bud's saying privately, they also don't believe. They also, this I should probably quote this properly using proper journalism here. Quotes privately, they also don't think that they also don't think the football oversight and the other committees will approve this recommendation. Some of this he hasn't necessarily. I don't think he's posted anything else since then. But I think what Bud's referring to is that the oversight committee, the upper level people I was referring to earlier, they might not approve this. Some of this have to do with spring enrollment. The semester calendars not lining up because not all schools are alike. Some schools start earlier, some start later. Some have different ways their semesters are formatted, which is nothing wrong with that personally. But of course, with coachable and student athletes, for of course, we go to the old adage, what is a student athlete nowadays? Because most of them are not student athletes; they are just here representing the school's football team and not really students. Going back to the whole Cardell Jones, I believe it was the play school thing. That was a very famous thing back on Twitter. It calls into question, of course, will this get approved? I think the coaches want it. I think the administrators and the upper level folks are cautious about it. I think they have their own concerns. They want to make sure this is organized. Personally, I would like this to go through. If I were to give my personal opinion on this, I would like this to go through because again, I understand where the coaches are coming from. The month of December is a disaster. It is too busy. It is just a bunch of a smorgasbord of things going on and too much activity going on. Even for me, I can't even keep up with my own show sometimes. Not an indictment necessarily on me, but just in general, it is very tough, especially for uh, even college football coaches to an extent. It is difficult to wear all the hats that you have to wear and make sure you can do all that stuff properly and in a timely manner. But they uh, they have their work cut out for them in December, and it's going to be a challenge for them, at least going forward, how they continue to manage their workload. And I think moving this back a little bit would create some levitativity to that, or at least alleviate some of that. Is the correct word. and hopefully would make their lives a lot easier. I would imagine it certainly would, and I think a lot of them are certainly rooting for this. I would really be surprised if most of them not. Obviously, they unanimously voted for this, and I would imagine some college administrators feel for them to some extent, but they have their concerns, and there's certainly some obstacles to go through. But I firmly believe this will be approved, and I think they will end up getting their way. Or at least, hopefully, I would imagine they'll get their way on this in the perfect world. But unfortunately, I don't think they will get their way on this if what Bud Elliott is saying is true. That privately there is some concerns here, and there is some thought that the oversight committees and the other higher ups would not approve this. But of course, who would not want to alleviate some of the workload come December? Because that would just seem natural to me, but unfortunately to others it is not. And again, we are not in those rooms. I have no access like those other national types do. I do not have the ability to go to these coaching conventions, even though to be honest, it'd be pretty cool to go to those. But I do not have the access to go to those. I do not know exactly what is being said, what is not being said. But if I had to guess, it's concerns probably stemming around calendar, school calendar, how the semesters line up, and not all of them are unilaterally the same. Even though, again, student athletes are not necessarily student athletes anymore. Been a massive debate on that over the past year or so, especially now with NIL being a thing. But who's to say they are not student athletes anymore? But that's my reactions on that. I think there may be a calendar shift coming. At least I'd like there to be a calendar shift coming, but not a guarantee, no less. And it doesn't seem like there's a lot of hope that it will happen. But fingers crossed, at least from the coach's perspective, they get that done and they can alleviate some of the pain that comes with having an expanded playoff, signing day, transfer portal, bowl prep, coaching firings and hirings and whatnot, and just around and around all of this craziness that goes on in the month of December. Then it calms down a little bit come January and February, and then it starts back up once spring practice returns. I'm gonna get some water real quick, and then we'll move on to Bucs Washington reaction real quick, and then we'll probably end up wrapping up the show here. We've been going for a little bit here. Again, apologies for the technical difficulties we've been going through today, no less. It's been pretty it's been a strange afternoon. I'll just say that. It's been a very, very strange afternoon, but just to ensure we are still live on YouTube. But yeah, just a lot of wonkiness going on. But we're getting through it. Had some issues with the computer, but it looks like everything is fine at the moment. And like I mentioned, we do have some guests we are trying to get on at some point. Been in contact with a couple of people. We'll see if they respond. If not, then that is totally okay. But get some water real quick, and then we'll talk about Buccaneers, and then we'll wrap up the show. Again, if you are somewhat new here and you are new to the show, welcome in. By the way, if you're listening to this on the podcast feed, YouTube replay, on the replay, the live stream, and whatnot, or listening to this somehow live, which not many of you are, frankly. Said a lot of franklies today. Probably shouldn't be saying a lot of that, but not a lot of folks tuning in, but that's okay. We can certainly manage that. That's a reasonable amount. This is not a very popular show. Again, if you're new here, we are fairly new, been around for almost a year or so. Used to be Spotify exclusive. Now we are both Spotify and YouTube. Still learning some new stuff. As I mentioned, getting guests on the show is a big deal, certainly. And, I'm very excited to potentially have some guests on the show and expand our program. We have been a growing program. A lot of folks have been interacting with us privately behind the scenes. There's some excitement going on. And we will continue to grow. It's a very small show right now, but hopefully in the coming months, years to come, we will get a major audience, and hopefully we will be able to properly have a good show, and hopefully someday we'll have, instead of just one person listening to us live, we'll have 1 million people watching us sooner rather than later. It's going to take some time, but it's best to not focus on the goal at hand and focus on the process of getting there, as I always say. And that's something that I echo, certainly to a certain extent. If you're doing your own show and you're starting out, don't focus on the prize, if you will, the end result. Focus on what is in front of you and what you control at the moment, and the small things that lead up to great success. I got a weird message here from Spotify. I guess upload a new clip or whatever, which is interesting. Never seen that before. Actually, I think I have. Actually, I think I saw that last week. But yeah, apparently you can't get it now. You can upload clips on Spotify, which is news. Which was new to me. I didn't know that was a necessarily a thing, if you will. But so the Buccaneers season ended on Sunday. Unfortunately, they lost to Washington Commanders, 23-20. Um, Fun game, by the way. Very fun game. Very entertaining game. I will say that. I mean, it was fun to watch. As a Bucs fan, I didn't like it. Didn't like what I was seeing. I didn't like the fact that we were losing the game and it was a slow start. Team came back. Um, I will give the Washington a lot of credit here. Dan Quinn, I know a lot of folks make fun of him, and I'm not going to waste time doing that. He's a good coach. Cliff Kingsbury, I think, once again showed that he's still a good offensive play caller. Head coach, we can have discussions on that. Certainly, he has a lot of issues with that, but he's not coaching right now, and he's up for a lot of head coaching jobs certainly, and he got the job done. Their defense stepped up, had a turnover late. They were able to miraculously get a double doink field goal as time expired, which is not the first time I've ever seen that in college football or in the NFL. So that was a Bucs fan that was demoralizing to watch that. But even just looking at it from a 50,000-foot perspective, fun game. The best game of the wild card week. And could have been a lot worse. Could have been a blowout game like 90% of those games were, except for this one. As for Tampa, a great season. A great season. You struggled towards the middle, much like last year. You finished strong. You had a lot of great moments. Like I mentioned last week, I went to my first. I've been a fan for the Buccaneers for 10 years. Wasn't Just to clarify, I wasn't one of the Tom Brady bandwagoners. So I went through the trials and whatnot with Jameis and going through the Duke Carter years. Just years I'll much rather forget, to say the least. And been through a lot. Was pretty emotional. The night they won the Super Bowl with Brady during COVID. I remember fondly watching that and almost in tears watching that. Very happy and relieved to actually have watched a team that I was cheering for win a Super Bowl. Not a lot of teams can really say that. Not a lot more, or at least not a lot of fan bases can say that. Very select few have even seen their team win two in their lifetime, which is pretty rare. Or at least not common, if you will. But it was a good season. Baker had a good year. Liam Cohen, again, unfortunately, he is up for head coaching positions. So was some other Buccaneers. Front office people are also up for positions that are open. We will obviously keep tabs on that going forward in the coming days and weeks. I'm assuming some of those will resolve certainly quickly than others. I know there's a lot of free agents will be on the market. Obviously, a lot of players who are not guaranteed to come back. Some of those we'll touch on those going forward in the coming weeks and so forth. But just a good season, a great season, fun team to watch. Again, I know a lot of people aren't fans of Todd Bowles right now. A lot of folks are frustrated, and I get it. The NFL is a lot different than college. Certainly, the intensity level is a lot different. The way the coaching market works is certainly clearly different, as I've spelled out numerous times in the past. I think Todd Bowles is safe. He's not going anywhere. I think everything's fine. At least keep stability going around. Clearly, we're going to need probably a new OC if Liam Cohen ends up leaving and going elsewhere. But at the moment, he's still there, and I think that's certainly a good. Certainly, it's a good thing that he's still there right now, and he has not moved on yet. But that is something that we'll eventually have to cross at some point. Needing to hire a new OC, which is again kind of what was expected, given his success. Not a bad thing necessarily. Not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's good that he's getting noticed, and he is. I think a lot of teams are starting to notice him a little bit more, and he's getting notoriety. But it also comes at a price, knowing that you're going to be losing a very good asset and a very good offensive coordinator to a head coaching position, probably somewhere, much like with Dave Canales last year. And look, no hate to Dave Canales. I think he did a fairly good job of a Panthers team that was somewhat limited and challenged to a certain extent in some areas, but they were able to thrive in some cases, and they were able to survive this season and they did some good things up there. And certainly Tampa missed him, and they brought in Liam Cohen. It worked out even better than I think any of us could have imagined as a Bucs fan or as Bucs as Um, just a tremendous season. It didn't necessarily end the way we thought it was going to end, but that happens. It happened last year a little bit in the Detroit game, and of course the uh, Raiders will move on. I think they go out to LA, I believe. And then I think that's correct, or somewhere. And then uh, I think that's how I don't have to go look at the bracket. I haven't looked at it since, to be quite honest with you. But that's off to Washington to know that a very good team, definitely well improved than they were from week one, which was something I mentioned during the preview. Even though my prediction ultimately became wrong, um, it was probably the classic case. It's hard to beat teams twice, especially in different moments. You don't know, especially these younger quarterbacks like a CJ Stroud or Jane Daniels and so forth, how these young quarterbacks who get into the playoff gain access to the postseason, how will they react? Some of them react differently than others. Daniels obviously reacted at a very high level, made some good plays. Their defense made some plays. I know Tampa, that mistake on the Jets sweep fumble was from a young player, Jim McMillan, who that was probably the worst moment of his entire season. And that's saying a lot, given he's had a terrific season up until that point. That's not taking away anything he's done. He's been very, very effective for them. Again, free agency, we'll see. I would imagine that Chris Godwin, the receiver for Tampa, has been there for 7 years or so. 7 years or so. I don't believe he is coming back. I would be surprised if he does. I think there might be a chance we move on from him. That's an insider information at all. But just reading the tea leaves, doesn't sound like he's coming back. So we'll see. Which makes sense given that at some point you do have to start moving on to younger talent, but also keeping around someone like Mike Evans, who had a great game on Sunday. Sad that his season had to come to an end when it did. And also for Baker as well. He actually played pretty well, I think, given all things considered. And that is the show tonight. Again, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back more likely Thursday. Hopefully everything on my side, technology-wise, will be fine. Um, Hopefully everything will be working out well. We'll be back Thursday. I'll dive into some more Marvel stuff, especially with some of the stuff coming out about Captain America: Brave New World and some of the stuff coming out about that and some other Marvel news going around. Topic for that, and not to mention the Clemson topic I had, which I got rid of because we just didn't have enough time to talk about it. But congratulations to Dabo Swinney making a huge move over there at Clemson, going against the grain, if you will, going against, see what happens when you don't hire from within. You don't have to promote. You don't always have to do that. You can always, there are such things as going out to other programs and stealing a very coveted head coach Tom Allen used to be a head coach, but now he's been a coordinator at Penn State, very successful. And you take him, a coach who made it to the semifinals as a D coordinator. You bring him in. I'll have more thoughts on that on the Thursday show for sure. But that's the stream tonight. I'll let you guys know if I'm back Thursday or not, pending any technical issues that we have. But I think everything's be all right. Just some issues that were going on a little bit earlier. By the way, hats off to the university that I am in grad school with. Their IT department helped me out a lot today. So thank you so much. I know you're going to listen to the show, but I'm saluting. You guys can't see me, but I'm saluting. Those guys really were big up today for a little issue that I ran into this afternoon, which was reason why the show was delayed so much. But I have to go make dinner. I've delayed putting off dinner as well. I was busy doing this. So probably until Thursday, giving any technical issues. Thank you for joining in. Again, I don't know what happened earlier. My computer, we were running some little diagnostic test, if you will, which is why the screen kind of went out for a second there on my end, but on the stream it was fine. So until Thursday, unless something else unforeseen happens here, enjoy the rest of your week, and take care.